Thanks, Chris and Buck, and welcome to everyone who's been watching the contest from Seattle. Welcome to Dodger Stadium, where the Dodgers and the Rockies are wrapping up their season series, and they start the night just a half-game difference in the National League's Western Division. Colorado leading Los Angeles by a half. They're up in the loss column, and in the wild card, the Dodgers now have a full game advantage on the Astros. Houston beaten in extra innings earlier. Kevin Tapani against Kevin Ritz, the pitching matchup tonight at Dodger Stadium. Before a sellout crowd, they are still coming in. And Young, who has regained that second base spot in the Rockies' plans, will lead off against Tapani. Dodgers won the first game of the series 4-3. The Rockies won last night 7-3. And this game is underway. The first pitch is a strike call. Bruce Fleming is calling the balls and strikes tonight. It will be Eric Young, followed by Joe Girardi, and then Dante Bichette. This one's foul out of play, giving Tapani the jump on Young.
And Dwayne, I think you have to take your hats off to the Rockies. I mean, they've been on the road, and they've been able to maintain their lead. They've played well. They've shown a lot of class under pressure, and I think that guy, Don Baylor, is the reason right there. Your leader leads you through these types of situations.
Down to third, and Wallach makes the play. The throw across to Karros to retire Eric Young to start this game.
There are a lot of people that say that a team takes on the personality of its manager, and I'm one that believes that. And if you're taking on the personality of Don Baylor, you are a tough individual under pressure. And the Rockies have shown that they can be that.
This is a big game for both clubs, obviously. As we mentioned, perhaps the biggest in the history of the Colorado franchise. And for the Dodgers, their biggest game of the year. Joe Girardi takes a strike. For the Dodgers, Joe, they come in a half game back, and they have to go down to San Diego to finish the regular season, and that has always been a tough spot for the Dodgers. One strike to count to Joe Girardi.
I really think this is a bigger game for the Dodgers tonight than the Rockies, simply because if the Dodgers win, they're tied in the loss column. And the Rockies can catch them by winning tomorrow. They can be back even. If the Dodgers lose, they're 2 down in the loss column, and Colorado only has 4 games left.
Strike call, and Tapani has the jump on Girardi.
But you can't really, if you're on the Colorado side, you cannot think about the fact that it's bigger for the Dodgers than it is for you, because you want to put the Dodgers under the ground. You have a chance to maybe bury them tonight.
Off the plate in, and the count goes to 2-2. Dodgers are saying before the game, this really is the start of their playoff. They have to win.
They definitely have to win this ball game. I agree. I just don't see how, if they lose this ball game, they can make up 4-2 in the loss column with Colorado only playing 4.
Girardi chases this one. He becomes the first strikeout posted by Tapani. 2 up, 2 down in the first for Colorado.
And this is a good pitch from Tapani. We've talked about the fact that he has a good changeup. That's a slider away, and Girardi just chases it way out of the strike zone. The other thing to remember, the Rockies are going home, and they're 42-26 in Colorado this year.
And here is Dante Bichette, third in the league in hitting, 341. Tops in home runs and runs batted in. And the pitch is a ball to Bichette.
If he waits and has this kind of year when Tony Gwynn retires, he may have a chance for a triple crown. He has had an outstanding year, and he's been hot down the stretch when they've needed him the most.
Bichette takes a look at this one and has the jump. 2 balls, no strikes.
There's really not a breather in this Colorado lineup. When you start with Eric Young right on down to Walt Weiss, right in between there, they have some bombers.
Walker on deck. He hit 2 out last night. 3-0 the count. Bichette has hit up around 390 for this road trip. This is the 10th game on this trip. Green light, 3-0, and he fouls it down past Ron Hassey, the third base coach.
You know what I like about that, hitting 3-0 in that situation? It tells your team we are relaxed, we are loose. We're not going to tighten up. We're going to go after them. And I think that's a good ploy there by Baylor to turn Bichette loose. Obviously, it doesn't hurt that he has 39 home runs, but normally you make a guy take 3-0 in the first inning.
He fouls it back. And the count goes to 3-2 with Bichette up there. That one swing can give you a quick lead early, so.
But I think he's sending a message to his team, I mean Don Baylor, by saying, hey guys, we're going to play this just like we played all year long. Let's go up, hack, and let's get it on.
2 outs, base is empty, full count. Here it is. And he popped him up. Got the pitch in on him. Tapani is making the call, and the catch to retire the side. The Rockies go down 1-2-3. Bottom of the first coming. No score from Dodger Stadium. Dodgers coming into hit in the bottom of the first inning. Scoreless against the Colorado Rockies. The Dodgers led by Mike Piazza and Eric Karros in the middle of that order. When they won Monday night, Piazza and Karros 4 runs batted in, 4 for 6. Last night they had some opportunities, but wound up 1 for 9 with nothing. Here's the lineup for Tommy Lasorda. Brett Butler leading off. He's followed by Chad Fonville, Piazza, Karros, and DeShields in the middle, followed by Tim Wallach. Raul Mondesi hitting 7th. He's been struggling recently. Kelly 8th, and Tapani, the pitcher, hits 9th.
And on the mound there, you see Ritz. He has won his last 2 starts. He's a guy that threw 94 miles an hour plus. Had Tommy John-like surgery on his elbow.
And his first pitch to Brett Butler is in there for a strike.
He got off to a great start this year, and then he lost 5 in a row, and they sent him to the bullpen, and he regained his confidence, and he's been pitching well ever since.
This one is down. It really lit a fire under him when he went to the bullpen. You're right, Joe. 2 great appearances out of the bullpen and 2 great starts since then. Butler, base hit to center. He'll make the turn and stop right there. So the Dodgers have the 38-year-old center fielder, Brett Butler, aboard to lead off.
And that's one thing that Brett Butler gives any team that he's with, a chance to score in the first inning. He has a .396 on-base percentage, which is very good, and he's on base often in the first inning.
So he gives Ritz and the Rockies something to think about over there with Butler at first and Chad Fonville more speed at the plate. Castilla close at third. And the bunt picked up by Galarraga, and everybody's going to be safe. Young over to cover the bag, and as Galarraga got there, he had no place to go.
I think Galarraga fumbled this ball because he did have a play. He should have thrown this ball to first base. Galarraga seemed like he took his time. At first, I thought Ritz was going to make the play. Now, let's watch. Ritz gets over there quickly, too. Now, it's an easier play for Ritz right there. And see, there is someone at first base. Galarraga just took too long. Young got there. That's not his fault.
That's a base hit. Fonville at first, and Butler moves up to second.
It was actually an easier play for Ritz, and he got over there. He was ready to make the play.
That's 41 infield hits for Fonville. Runners at first and second. Nobody out from Mike Piazza. Second in the league in home run and batting average at .350. And he lines it into center. That's going to fall for a base hit. Burks will make the pickup. Butler had to stop, and so the bases are loaded. Butler had to wait to see if the ball was going to carry to Burks. And the Dodgers have loaded the bases in the first against Kevin Ritz. So they're loaded for the cleanup man, Eric Karros. Karros has been Mr. Clutch all year for the Dodgers. 104 runs batted in, 3rd in the league, 5th in the league in home runs. And Ritz does him a strike.
Good pitch there by Ritz. Slider on the outside corner. And what he needs to do is try to weather this storm. He knows that his team is capable of scoring a lot of runs. He just can't open the floodgates here in the first inning.
1 ball, 1 strike.
In last night's ball game, the Dodgers got within 4-3, and they had Karros and Piazza coming up. Of course, Piazza hitting first. He popped up, and they got Karros out with 1 down and left the tying run in scoring position. The Rockies came back and burst it open with 3 more. Beautiful breaking ball.
Quite a pitch right there by Ritz. 1-2.
Let's take a look at this pitch. It looks like a changeup, but it breaks too much. That's a big breaking ball.
Nobody out. He comes too close, and the count goes to 2-2. And with the changeup in mind, that's something that we can look for tonight out of Rich. Frank Funk at the AAA level helped Rich develop that pitch, and he thinks that has been a big part of his success.
Well, the other part of his success is the pitch he just made, a fastball in on the right-hander. The only difficult part is it takes the count to 2-2 with the bases loaded. You do not have a big margin of error here with the bases loaded.
The 2-2. Fouled out of play.
And that was a good fastball there from Rich. He's throwing well. He seems like has his emotions intact. He's not overthrowing, not trying to throw too hard. He's just free and easy.
Just a piece of that one to stay alive.
Well, he got away with a hanger then also. The ball hung inside. But Karros fouled it off.
Karros to move over the century mark and runs batted in. Has 24 in his last 24 games. And now has a full count. 3-2 with the bases loaded.
And that's why I said the 2-2, the 1-2 pitch inside, making it 2-2, is a tough pitch to throw in this situation with the bases loaded.
Here it is, 3-2. Strike 3 call. Karros called out on strikes, and Ritz gets a big one for the first out.
Well, first of all, it looks like a pretty good pitch from Ritz, but Karros, with the bases loaded, no one out, I don't think you're up there looking for a walk. Let's take a look at this pitch. Well, the catcher makes it look worse than it is. Watch, Girardi catches the ball going down, and you see the reaction of Karros. He thought the ball was low.
Now Delino to Shields. First pitch, breaking ball misses, ball 1. Karros caught looking for the first out. It's going to be out of play, and the count goes to 1-1. The Shields struggled through the first half of the year. Really didn't catch fire until August. Hit over 400 in August, and has attempted to reestablish his role on the Dodger ball club. It's in. 2 balls and a strike.
Well, he's hitting 5th in this lineup. Tells you that Lasorda has confidence in him again, and that, you know, he has been swinging the bat well, and he wants a left-hander behind Karros.
Dodgers have loaded the bases in the first. Out of play once more to square the count at 2 balls and 2 strikes.
And to tell you how big a strikeout that was with Karros, I mean, if he misses and that's ball 4, it really plays on Ritz's mind that he has walked in the go-ahead run, bases still loaded, no one out. By striking me out, it gives him a lot of confidence to say, hey, I can get out of this with a minimum amount of damage.
He's off the plate in to DeShields, and the count goes to 3-2 on the Dodgers second baseman. Brett Butler on at third. Chad Fonville at second, and Mike Piazza is the Dodger runner at first. 3-2, and a fly ball into left. Bichette in line to make the catch. The tag by Butler. He will score. Throw back to second. Ball loose, but it's backed up by Galarraga. The Dodgers take the lead as Butler scores on the sacrifice fly by Delino DeShields. That's his 37th run batted in.
Well, the Dodgers have scored a run, but if you're the Rockies, you have to be happy with this because you were close to being in real trouble. Now, Bichette, instead of throwing to third, he fires to second base. Fonville was going to bluff. He threw behind him. Ball bounces away, but Galarraga is backing up. Good play there by Bichette.
Now Tim Wallach. Wave and a miss, strike one. Wallach is playing with a torn posterior cruciate ligament in his left knee. He spent some time on the disabled list. Missed only a couple of weeks. This one a little bit wide. At the time of the injury, they thought it might not only end his season, but possibly his career. But he's back playing. Two balls, one strike to count. In the bottom of the first, the Dodgers had loaded the bases with nobody out. So far, they have one run to show for it. Two out now with men at first and second. Wallach sends it toward the right field line. Walker on the run, back to the track, and he makes the catch. And Kevin Ritz gets out of that. The Dodgers settle for just one run, and at the end of one, Los Angeles 1, Colorado nothing.
ESPN's Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by Kellogg's Frosted Flakes, the cereal served in clubhouses of Major League Baseball.
The lights are on, but nobody's home in downtown Los Angeles. They're all at Dodger Stadium. A sellout crowd tonight for the final game of this series between the Dodgers and the Rockies. Dodgers settled for just one run, missing a golden opportunity to score a lot more in the bottom of the first. Larry Walker leads off and has himself a base hit on the first pitch from Tapani. Walker, who hit 2 home runs last night to give him 34 on the year, has a base hit his first time up tonight.
Baseman, number 14, Andres Galarraga.
And the addition of Larry Walker really balanced this Colorado offense because they're predominantly a right-handed hitting ball club. If you look at it, you know, Bichette, Galarraga, Burke, Castilla, those guys are basically right-handed hitters. And you need something like Walker to break up that combination. And I think that's really what the Dodgers are doing when they put the Shields in there to break up that 3-4-5 combination of all right-handed hitters.
Andres Galarraga 0 for 4 last night. He was fouled with the first pitch out of play. Strike one. When you look at his numbers, when you look at any of the Rocky hitters, particularly in the middle of the order, you look at their numbers, you think, well, how can this guy be struggling? Galarraga has been struggling recently. His average down to 277, and he was out very early today with Art Howe on this coaching staff working on his approach to the ball. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Well, he has a very unusual stance to start with, and when one little thing gets out of kilter there, you're really in and you have a lot of problems because there is a lot of movement with his body, and therefore his head moves a lot when he goes into the ball. Try to have as little amount of movement as possible if you're a hitter.
Down ball, double play ball. DeShields out at second. Over to Karros to complete the double play. Galarraga grounds into a 4-3 double play, erasing Larry Walker.
It's interesting because Tapani does not usually throw a lot of ground ball double plays, and he just threw 2 ground balls in a row. This ball is sinks. He threw a sinker there. Galarraga grounds it back up the middle. Nice play by DeShields. He takes it himself. Walker puts a lot of pressure on him, and DeShields leaps and throws. Nice play. But you can see he had plenty of time to get Galarraga at first base.
Ellis Burks takes one too low, ball 1. He's been receiving a little more playing time recently in center field, as Don Baylor, even last night in a situation where he could have gone with the left-right percentages and pinch hits for Burks, he left him in there against a right-handed pitcher because Baylor feels it's important to go with experience down the stretch.
Well, Don Baylor is basically from the old school. I mean, he's played probably when his former managers did the same thing. In a pennant race, they'd go with the veterans. And everyone says, well, what difference does it make? It makes a lot of difference. A veteran player will not make mistakes by trying to do too much. What happens when you have young players out there, they try to do too much. They try to win the game by themselves.
And it goes to 2-2. And even in the case of Ellis Burks and Mike Kingery, Kingery's 34 years old, but Burks has been in these situations before.
Right. Burks, of course, played for Boston when they were fighting for pennants. And again, he's a very good player, smart player, too.
Now it goes to 3-2. Tapani thought he might have had a called third strike and started to move toward the dugout.
Well, I guarantee you that Lasorda's yelling over there. Says he gave it to Ritz, and now you're not giving it to my guy. That might have been off the plate outside.
3-2 into center field. Butler on the move, can't get there, base hit. Ellis Burks follows with a single. The second hit off Tapani.
Third baseman.
That will bring along Vince Castilla.
Vinny Castilla.
Vinny Castilla. And what great numbers he's been able to put up. The all-star third baseman for the National League this year. 4th in the league in home runs and 8th in the league in hitting.
And when you have a guy hitting in the 7th slot with 32 home runs,
you've got a good team.
You've got a good offensive ball club.
High fly ball, a little slice to that one toward the line, but Mondesi is there to take care of it, and that retires the side. 2 hits, a man left. Bottom of the second coming. 1-0 Los Angeles.
23. Right fielder.
Dodgers scored a run in the first. They lead as we go into the bottom of inning 2, 1-0. Kevin Ritz against Kevin Tapani. And Raul Mondesi will open the Dodgers second. He's hitting 7th in Tommy Lasorda's lineup. Mondesi, Kelly, and then Tapani. He's hitting just 194 on this homestand, but had 2 hits, including a double and a run batted in last night. The pitch is a strike.
And I can see why the Rockies like Ritz, because, I mean, he has never lost his composure in this ball game, and he had an opportunity to do so in the first inning, and he looks like he's free and easy, and he is.
He has the quick jump on Mondesi. No balls and 2 strikes.
When you talk about the guys in this situation for the Rockies, this being the biggest game in the history of their franchise, I mean, that has to play on the pitcher's mind and everyone else, and I think he's handling it very well so far.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Well, he's had a lot of adversity in his career. Ritz is 30 years old. At one time, he thought his career was over. Ground ball. That's going to sneak through on the left side. Mondesi reaching out, makes a big turn at first, but Bichette up with that ball. And a leadoff single by Mondesi for the Dodgers. Reminder now, if a playoff spot would still be up for grabs Sunday on ESPN and ESPN2, your place for pennant chase baseball at 1:30 Eastern. The possibilities include the Yankees and the Blue Jays and the Astros and the Cubs. And at 4 Eastern on ESPN, here's the lineup of possible games should a playoff spot still be up for grabs. Mondesi at first base, nobody out, and Roberto Kelly is the hitter.
And we'll see if Lasorda tries to take it to the Rockies by putting runners in motion. Of course, Mondesi is a good base stealer, 27 stolen bases, only caught 4 times. And that's what you want to do. You want to put a little pressure on the other team, force the pitcher to think about it, and you see he is thinking about it, and I think that's important. The element of speed is another way of taking it to the other team, to the opposition.
Look out on Kelly. This pitch from Ritz is high. A ball, no strikes. The Dodger run in the first inning came on a sacrifice fly by Delino DeShields. Mondesi has opened their second with a base hit. Kelly fouls one out of play, and the count is 1-1.
Actually, the pitch that Rich threw to Mondesi was a very good pitch. Mondesi actually broke his bat on it, and it just shows you, like so many of the other Dodger hitters here, they're very strong, and they can kind of muscle the ball, and that's what Mondesi did to get the single.
A move to first by Ritz as Mondesi starting to lean a little bit over there at first. He is a powerful runner. And the pitch out, but nothing doing. So they coax the pitch out of the Rockies, and the count goes to 2-1.
Well, when you pitch out 1-1, really what you do is tell them to go on the next pitch, because you can't pitch out again, and you have a good runner at first, and you have a pretty good hitter at the plate, and Lasorda takes advantage of these opportunities a lot of times.
Ritz trying to keep him close. Back to first, and Mondesi back in easily. By Roberto Kelly.
Good pitch there by Ritz. Fastball up and in.
Two the count. Ritz did not pitch at all in 1993, recovering from the Tommy John operation when they reconstructed his right elbow. Just prior to that year, he was put on waivers by the Rockies and claimed by the Indians. But he didn't pass the physical exam because of that elbow. Wound up back with the Rockies. He had the surgery and started then to rehab the elbow. 2-2. Down to third, and it gets by Castilla up the left field line. Mondesi's on his way to third, and Kelly will head to second. Second and third. Nobody out for the Dodgers.
The ball is hit hard, but it's off the glove of Castilla, and so much has been made about the condition of this Dodger infield. I'm not so sure that Castilla didn't play this off to the side. See, that ball, if ball hits off the edge of his glove, it would have been a good play, but one that I'm sure he feels like he should have made.
So the Dodgers have men at second and third, and the Rockies pull the infield in with the pitcher Kevin Tapani at the plate. Tapani, a base hit to the drawn-in infield. Mondesi scores. Kelly stops at third. Tapani drives in only his second run, and the Dodgers lead 2-0.
And before I could get it out of my mouth, it happens, and that is anytime you bring the infield in, you do not have very much range, and anything will get through unless it's hit directly at somebody. Well, it looks like a little changeup or a breaking ball away, and you see no one has any chance to move on it. Weiss didn't have a chance. Castillo made the best attempt, but anytime you're playing in tight with the infield, you are really opening up a lot of holes.
So Tapani helps himself, and Larry Bernhardt, the pitching coach of the Rockies, spends a little time on the mound with Kevin Ritz.
I don't think they would have played the infield in had it not been a pitcher hitting. But they didn't want the pitcher to hit a little dribbler and a run score, so that's probably why Baylor was playing the infield in.
Number 22.
The logic was there, but you also open up the infield when you do that.
There's still nobody out in the inning. The Dodgers had 6 hits in this game. And the top of the order, Brett Butler steps in.
Now they're playing back for a 2. They wanted to get Tapani out probably and then play the infield back, as they're doing now, but Tapani, of course, got the base hit. So now they're just going to try to get a double play and again hold down the damage to a minimum.
Chopper right side. DeShields out at second. No return throw to first. Kelly crosses the plate with the third Dodger run. Tapani is forced at second, and Butler reaches on a fielder's choice and will pick up his 36th run batted in.
Well, it's a chopper to the right side. No chance to get a double play on a speedy runner like Butler. They take one. Wisely takes one and holds it there, and the Dodgers get another run.
And Tapani will go back into the Dodger dugout after driving in a run, being forced at second. Chad Fonville. There goes Butler. The pitch is a strike, and the throw is not in time. Stolen base for Butler. That gives him 30.
Well, he picked a good pitch to run on. This was not a fastball. And if it had been a fastball, I think Girardi would have gotten him. It was an off-speed pitch, and Girardi still made a good throw and made it close at second base.
So Butler steals his way into scoring position. A strike to count to Fonville. 0-2. This fella down in the count. What an addition he has been to the Dodgers. Tommy Lasorda won't go so far as to say they don't know where they would be without him, but he's filled in at 3 different spots in the outfield and left for a time, at shortstop, and at second base when those players were not producing. Fonville stepped in and did, and Lasorda will say he gave them some spark. 0-2 the count. 1-2.
Well, he may not want to say it, but without Fonville, they would not be in the position that they're in today, because the Shields really struggled early, and if they would have had to let him play every day, they would have lost a few more ball games.
Ground ball. Weiss gets rid of it quickly, and he had to with Fonville going down the line. Fonville retired at first as Butler advances to third.
And you can see how quickly he gets down the line. Weiss waited on that ball a hair longer than he normally would have, but I think he wanted to make sure, because he had a bad night here Monday night. He had 3 errors, and I think the infield, causes him a few problems here. This is not the best infield in the world, so I think he wanted to make sure that he caught that ball before he threw to first base.
Mike Piazza. This one wide. A ball, no strikes. Dodgers with 2 runs home in the second inning, leading 3-0. Piazza 355 with men in scoring position. Hitting 351 overall right now. And a drive into left. Bichette is there to make the catch, and the Dodgers are finished, but they add 2. We have completed 2 innings at Dodger Stadium. Los Angeles 3, Colorado 0. At Dodger Stadium tonight, the Dodgers have a 3-0 lead on the Rockies. Colorado starting the night leading Los Angeles by a half game in the National League's Western Division race. They've divided 2 games here in this current series. For the year, the Dodgers and the Rockies have divided 6 games right down the middle, 3-3 at Dodger Stadium. And here's Walt Weiss, the veteran shortstop, leading off for the Rockies. Weiss, then the pitcher Ritz, followed by the top of the batting order, Eric Young. Weiss takes the ball. He's had a good year for the Rockies, defensively and at the plate. That on-base percentage, batting 8th in front of the pitcher, is the 3rd best in the National League. 1-1.
Well, he has been the glue that has held this ball club together, especially on the infield. And he has been just an invaluable player for the Rockies.
Pitch inside, and the count goes to 2 balls and a strike. The Rockies down early here, 3-0. But they have great firepower. Maybe not as much on the road as they do at Coors Field. There's a shot up the left side, foul. So the count goes to 2-2. And there is a differential. You can see at home, the Rockies are averaging 6.7 runs a game, best in the league. A little over 4 runs a game on the road.
Of course, a lot of it has to do with the ballpark, but I think it's also the confidence they have hitting in that ballpark. Your confidence level as a Rockies hitter playing in Coors Field is higher than it is on the road. Your confidence level has a lot to do with the way you swing the bat.
Ground ball for DeShields. He'll make the play to Karros for the first out. 1 gone with the bases empty and the pitcher due up. And that works 2 ways. The same thing works with the pitchers.
Pitcher.
They might be a little more confident on the road than they are giving up extra base hits and home runs at their home field.
Well, they've done very well on the road. You see, they're second in the National League, you know, to the Atlanta Braves, of course, on the road.
Reds takes a strike.
Greg Maddux has won like 17 games, I guess, in a row on the road, so that helps lower Atlanta's earned run average.
That's an interesting figure, because when people talk about the Rockies and their success this year, so often the first thing that pops up in the conversation is, well, there's Coors Field, and it gives them such a great advantage. But, you know, 2 teams have to play there. 2 teams have to hit. There's a base hit, a shot right back over the head of Kevin Tapani. So Kevin Ritz rips one into center field. 2 teams have to hit there, and 2 teams have to pitch there.
Right.
Second baseman.
So is it really unfair?
Well, we'll take a look at Ritz. He was hitting 174 coming in, which is pretty good average for a pitcher, and Tapani not able to flag that one down as it went into center field.
1 on, 1 out.
You were bringing up the point about 2 teams play there. All the hitters hit there. So you can't really say, you know, that even Bichette's numbers are inflated and things like that. Everyone plays there, and he still has these excellent numbers. So I think you have to give the people credit for what they've accomplished. And the Rockies have accomplished a lot, and especially, you know, only being in the league a couple of years.
At the top of the order, Eric Young. Young takes one inside, fastball, ball 1. And grounded out his first time. Dodgers leading the Rockies 3-0 as we play on the top of the 3rd at Dodger Stadium. 2-0, says Bruce Fleming.
And there are a lot of great stories on the Rockies ball club, simply because, you know, a guy like Eric Young, when he came to spring training, he wasn't the second baseman. He wasn't going to be. He won the job, and he's helped them to get this far during the pennant race. And we talked about Ritz. Just a lot of amazing stories, and that's what it takes, really, to get to this level, to get to this point where you have a chance to win a championship. You have to have a lot of people play better than they have in the past.
Young has worked the count to 3-0. And the Rockies will tell you it has been a team effort, as it always is when you have a successful year. All 4. So Young works Tapani for the base on balls. And that's something that you don't see very often out of Tapani. He generally has very good control.
Well, the first 2 pitches he just barely missed, and then he seemed to get a little frustrated and just made 2 more poor pitches. Well, you better not give the Rockies too many free passes or too many opportunities at you to take shots at you, or they will convert them. They, of course, lead the league in runs scored and home runs.
And slugging percentage.
Yeah.
You name it.
Yeah, and runs. Yeah.
Here's Joe Girardi. The pitch is down to him, ball 1. Well, anytime you give up a base hit to the number 9 hitter, in this case the pitcher, and then you follow that with a walk, you're asking for trouble, because pretty soon you're down into the middle of the order with men on base. Girardi becomes a pivotal hitter for Tapani. And he takes a strike this time. It's 1-1.
Girardi, another amazing story in that here's a catcher hitting second, and Don Baylor says he hits him second because he gives him a lot of options, because he can hit and run, he can bunt with him, he can do so many things with him. Very unusual to have a catcher hitting second in your lineup.
And a ground ball to the right side. DeShields to Fonville 1, and he'll hold the ball there. Young is forced at second. DeShields had to range to his left to come up to start that play as Ritz goes to third and Girardi reaches on a fielder's choice.
Tell you what, the balls are not rolling very quickly through this infield. He hit that ball sharply, but it didn't get out there very quickly. I wonder if the grass is a little high, a little higher than normal, because it's taking these ground balls a long time to get to the infielders. And if you take a look at it, you can see that it is pretty high in the different colors there. You can see one is higher than the other. There's our ace camera crew giving us a shot. That is a very high infield right there. You can see. Good shot, guys.
Here's Dante Bichette. The pitch is wide. Ball 1. Bichette popped out his first time. 369 with men in scoring position. That's why he's leading the league in runs batted in. 123. He drives this one high and deep to right, and that ball is gone and then some. A 3-run home run as Bichette ties this one with his 40th home run of the year.
Well, maybe he does not need Coors Field, right? I mean, everyone talks about all the home runs he's hit in Coors Field, but he has hit a lot of home runs on the road now. He's driven in a lot of runs on the road. And as I said earlier, he has had an excellent road trip here ending the season. Anybody that doesn't think he doesn't deserve to be MVP or deserve some votes, they're mistaken. Fastball away, and he hits it away. And I think Bichette, Larkin, Piazza, Karros.
There's Walker with a bouncer to first. Karros will take care of this one to retire the side. But on the home run by Dante Bichette, his 40th of the year. The Rockies scored 3 and will go into the bottom of the third, tied 3-3. This series started on an upbeat note for the Dodgers and Eric Karros on Monday when Karros hit a home run that turned out to give the Dodgers their eventual 4-3 victory. But last night, facing Darren Holmes, he struck out with the bases loaded. And then earlier tonight was called out on strikes in the first with them loaded. Karros leads off the bottom of the third and takes the first pitch for a ball. Karros to Shields and then Wallach. There's a strike.
I want to make a point. I said in the first inning, the ball looked like it was low because of the way Girardi caught it. He caught it with his glove going down, but when it crossed the plate, it was a pretty good pitch.
2 balls and a strike. Off the plate wide. Karros ahead of Ritz, 3-1. Rockies got 3 quick runs on 1 swing of the bat in the top of the inning. With the strike, the count is full. Home run by Dante Bichette, pulling the Rockies even. All 4. Ritz gives up a walk, and we'll go to John Saunders.
Thanks, Dwayne. As you know, the Astros started the day a half game back of the Dodgers in the wild card race, facing the Pirates in extra innings with the bases loaded. Rich Ottey with the single here. Martin and Merced come in to score. Pirates lead at 5-3 and go on to the 6-3 win. Back to Dwayne and Joe.
Thank you, John. So the Dodgers have a little more room in the wild card chase, but in the division race, they're a half game behind Colorado. Delano DeShields taking the first pitch too high.
Not the way you want to start each inning if you're Kevin Ritz, but all 3 innings now, the leadoff man has reached base.
There goes the runner, and DeShields sends one into right. Walker on the move. That's going to be over his head. He'll have to go get the ball at the base of the fence. Karros will stop at third, and into second goes DeShields.
It appeared that Walker had a bead on the ball, then all of a sudden he stopped. I'm not so sure that he didn't lose it in the lights because he stopped suddenly, like he didn't know where it was all of a sudden. Now we'll take a look at it. DeShields hits this ball hard, and they're not playing him that deep. And he extends well, drives it to right field. Now you see, look, all of us right there, he stopped right there, but I guess the ball was over his head.
So the Dodgers are right back with a scoring threat. Runners at second and third with nobody out for Tim Wallach.
You just can't continue to let the leadoff hitter reach base.
Infield in. Ball 1. And Ritz, by doing that, is doing the equivalent to what Tapani did when he allowed the 9th-place hitter to get a base hit, and he followed that with a walk.
I must say I don't quite understand why they're playing the infield in now.
Knocked down by Weiss. What a play. And the throw a little high, but in plenty of time. What a play by Weiss, who was in with the rest of the infield, and they retire Wallach as the runners hold.
Well, it almost cost them 2 more runs.
Number 43.
You have an explosive ball club. You do not have to hold them down. I mean, see, when you're playing that tight, you just do not have any range. That was a great play by Weiss, and we've said that he's had a great season. Now they're in a situation where I guess they're going to stay in.
Raul Mondesi is going to be the hitter. They're giving no signs of dropping back.
Well, the point is I'm trying to make is that you have a good offensive ball club. You do not have to play, you know, to keep the game 1 run or whatever. When you get in trouble, you try to get out with a minimum amount of damage. And that's why normally in this situation you would play the infield back, concede a run, and, you know, for an out. There are other options here, too. In this situation, he can walk Mondesi and try to double up Kelly. But I guess he's going to try to get Mondesi out. And if he gets Mondesi out, then he'll walk Kelly and pitch to Tapani. So I guess he's decided that Mondesi is swinging the bat the worst of the 2 right now, although they both had base hits their first time up. He and
Mondesi, who has struggled on this homestand, did have 2 hits last night. 1 tonight. And he pops it foul. It's headed out of play. Strike 1. Mondesi hitting out of the 7th spot, dropping down in the Dodger order since he's been struggling.
You're putting a lot of pressure on your infielders when you play in this tight. Because, again, any ball, it doesn't have to be hit hard. It just has to be hit in the right spot, as we saw earlier with Tapani. A lot of holes on the infield when you're playing in this shallow.
This one stopped by Girardi. One thing about Mondesi, and he is an extraordinary talent, but he has had problems with men in scoring position, and that's something that's not altogether unusual for a young hitter. He might become overly aggressive.
That's the point you're making is well taken, in that is his problem. He becomes overly aggressive. He will chase a lot of balls out of the strike zone. So you do have a chance of striking him out in this situation.
And he takes a strike there. A ball, 2 strikes. The number you saw, a little over 270 with men in scoring position, is a vast improvement over what it was at midseason. And still, when he finds himself in that spot with 2 men out, it's well below 200. He has men at second and third now with 1 out and is behind in the count 1 and 2. Ground ball, second base. The runner's headed home. Young recovers in time to get Mondesi at first. Karros crosses the plate with DeShields going to third. And the Dodgers come up with their 4th run. Mondesi is out at first as Young, on the drawn-in infield, could not field it cleanly, but did get 1 out.
Well, he was going to be able to throw Karros out with a good throw to the plate, but he has to fight back and come up with it and throw out Mondesi, who's racing down the line. So he has a shot right now at Karros, but he doesn't field it cleanly. Now he has to really hurry to get Mondesi. Actually, it turned into a good play because to get Mondesi after you bobble the ball, you have to really hurry. And they are going to walk Kelly and pitch to Tapani. But see, the Dodgers accomplished a couple of things here. Now, next inning, they will have their leadoff hitter leading off again, Brett Butler, and there's no one on this ball club you'd rather have lead off an inning than Brett Butler. That is, if they can retire Tapani. So the Dodgers are going to accomplish a lot out of this inning, whether Tapani gets a base hit or not. They've already added 1 run, and they're going to have the top of their order leading off in the 4th inning, if they're able to retire Tapani.
So there's ball 4, setting up a 1st and 3rd, 2 out for the pitcher Tapani. 7 hits surrendered by Ritz, and he finds himself down by a run. Karros, who opened the inning with a walk, and scored the go-ahead run for the Dodgers. So that leadoff walk, as it so often does, comes back to cost Ritz a run. Now Tapani. And the first pitch to the Dodger pitcher's in there for a strike. Tapani drove in a run with a base hit through the drawn-in infield in the 2nd inning, batting again in the 3rd. Ground ball headed to short. Weiss takes it to first to retire the side, but the Dodgers come up with a run on 1 hit. They leave 2. We are through 3, 4-3 Los Angeles.
Time now for the K Factor, brought to you by Kellogg's. It's the strikeout leaders in the Major League. Randy Johnson leading everyone with 275. He'll pitch tomorrow against Texas. Hideo Nomo of the Dodgers tops in the National League. Back to Dewayne and Joe.
And Nomo is set to pitch the Saturday night game when the Dodgers play the Padres down in San Diego. So he'll be the 2nd pitcher. Ishmael Valdez, who did receive some consideration of starting tonight, will open that series Friday in San Diego, and then Nomo will work the Saturday game. Andres Galarraga fouls the first pitch out of play, and the 4th inning is underway. Strike 1.
Well, the Dodgers have not converted. They've had opportunities to break this game open. They haven't been able to do so. The Rockies are fortunate that they're only run down in this ball game. And usually that will come back to haunt you when you're a team like the Dodgers with numerous opportunities to break it open early and you do not. It usually catches up with you before the evening is over.
1 ball, 2 strikes. You know, that's a haunting feeling throughout the evening when you let those early opportunities get away from you.
Yes, and it will build up because the pressure starts to mount on you to drive in those runs as the game goes along. You're not as relaxed as you should be.
Galarraga just a piece of that one to stay alive. Galarraga grounded into a 4-3 double play his first time. Rockies fell behind 3-0. Tied it on Bichette's 40th home run of the year, and the Dodgers came right back with a run in the bottom of the 3rd to go up 4-3. Bonville from shortstop throws out Galarraga. That's the first out in the 4th.
Center fielder.
And we'll bring along the center fielder, Ellis Burks. A full house at Dodger Stadium. The Rockies will be going home to play San Francisco. Burke shortens on the bat and takes the ball. They have a 4-game series at Coors Field with the Giants, where they are already 3-0 against San Francisco and 6-3 in the season series against them. 1-1 to count on Burks. Meanwhile, the Dodgers have always had problems against the San Diego Padres. So a Colorado win tonight would really put the Dodgers in a tough spot. 2-1. The remaining games this final weekend approaching. Rockies 4 against the Giants. Dodgers 3 against the Padres. In Houston 4 at Chicago. A chop to short. Bonville again. Over the top with his throw, and Burks is out number 2. Houston still in that wild card hunt, although they lost in extra innings earlier. They'll go to Chicago to wrap up the season there.
And the Rockies are at home again. They're 42-26 in Colorado, so things look good for them there. The Dodgers, as you mentioned, have always had problems with San Diego, and especially toward the end of the season when they're fighting for something.
This one is down, ball 1. I think the Dodgers through the years of going to San Diego since the Padres joined the National League in 1969, the Dodgers are only 1 game over 500 at San Diego. 1-1. And how about this to think about? The Padres have Fernando Valenzuela on that pitching staff.
Yeah.
So what if it comes down to that final weekend, maybe the final day?
Probably the final day, because I believe he was pitching today. So that
Fernando.
would give him, yeah, he could pitch. Let's see, he could pitch again on Sunday if they wanted to, I guess.
Yep. Well, it's possible.
There's Nomo, who is sitting next to Valdez. They're best of buddies, and they're always talking on the bench. I don't know if they speak Spanish or Japanese, but they're always conversing on the bench. They're best buddies on this ball club.
1-1, the count to Castilla. He pops it up, foul ball. Carroll's after it. He makes the grab for the out. 1, 2, 3, go the Rockies. We go on to the Dodger half of inning 4. Los Angeles 4, Colorado 3. Dodgers leading 4-3 as we go into the bottom of the 4th in Los Angeles. Top of the batting order due for the Dodgers, and so far tonight they have put the leadoff man on base in each of the front 3 innings, and they've scored every time.
So it'll be up to Ritz to see if he can break that string here. Just trying to get the leadoff hitter off out in the 4th inning. You just cannot continue to pitch under that kind of pressure by allowing the leadoff hitter to get on base. It immediately puts you and the defense under a lot of pressure.
The Ritz faces Butler. Butler has a run scored and a run batted in, and Ritz misses on the first pitch. Ball 1.
I like what Girardi did. He kind of gave him a clenched fist and said, let's go, guys. I like that.
And the bunt right back to the mound.
Well, they do him a favor. Butler, of course, is a very good bunter normally, but he really did Ritz a favor there because it was 1 ball, no strikes, and he let him off the hook.
So for the first time tonight, Ritz retires that leadoff man, and now he'll face Chad Fonville. We mentioned earlier tonight, Ritz had that reconstructive surgery done on his right elbow and missed the entire '93 season. And as he rehabbed that, and before he went to spring training in '94, he came very close to calling it a career. Fonville shortened and then was set to take a full cut. Took the pitch too high, ball 1. Back in Ohio, where he spends the offseason, he was working out, and the arm hurt so badly that he was driving home and rehearsing in his mind how he was going to tell his wife that he was going to retire. That was going to be it for his baseball career. This was just before he was to go to spring training. Count is 2-1. And as he went home and opened the door, there was a big surprise party, a going away to spring training party for him. And he said he just didn't have the heart to tell his wife that he was not going to go to spring training. And so he did. And he's battled his way back, and recently has been the most effective Colorado pitcher. He throws a strike, and the count goes to 3-2 on Fonville.
There's Larry Bernhardt, the pitching coach, watching him very closely.
Foul ball by Fonville to hold the count right there at 3-2. Butler out trying to bunt his way on to start the inning, and now Fonville who bunted his way out in the first, has a full count.
Good pitch.
Strike 3 call. That's the second strikeout by Ritz, and the second out. Reminder, tomorrow night on ESPN, it's an ACC showdown. Number 17 Maryland takes on Georgia Tech along at 8 Eastern and 5 Pacific. Terrapins are off to a 4-0 start. Base is empty, 2 gone from Mike Piazza, who has singled in line to left. Ritz misses, ball 1.
When you play the Dodgers, your first goal should be to keep Piazza, Karros, and Mondesi in the ballpark. Keep them from hitting home runs.
Tap. Ritz barehands it. Goes to first, and the Dodgers are out 1-2-3. We are through 4. 4-3 Los Angeles.
Greg Maddux headed towards his 4th consecutive Cy Young Award. Got another victory tonight, the 19th of the season. Get some defensive help from Lemke here. He is first in the following categories: wins, percentage, ERA, and innings. 18th straight road win. That's a major league record. And he's the first pitcher with an ERA under 2 straight years since Walter Johnson in 1918 and 19. Dwayne and Joe.
All right, thank you. That's his 11th complete game this year as well, and the 90th victory for the Braves this year.
Well, I think John is right. That's going to be his 4th consecutive Cy Young Award. A lot of people are pushing him for MVP. I believe he's the Cy Young Award winner, but there are too many big bats and big numbers put up by other players for him to be the most valuable player as well.
I tried to embellish his numbers even more. That's not a complete game, so he's still stuck at only 10. Here's Walt Weiss. The first pitch from Tampany is a ball.
I'm of the belief that an everyday player with the numbers that Bichette, with Piazza, Karros, Larkin, Sanders, Gant, all these guys have, one of those players deserves to be the MVP. The Cy Young Award is for the pitchers. And I think Kirby Puckett said it best once. He said, I can't win the Cy Young Award. Why can he win the most valuable player award? I mean, there's no doubt that Greg Maddux is very valuable to his ball club. But he goes once every 5th day, and I think that's why they put the Cy Young Award out there. That is for the most valuable pitcher and the best pitcher in the league, and that's what he is.
2 balls and 2 strikes. And, you know, even though the likes of Bob Gibson and so forth, and Maddux is having a Gibson-like year, and you can make the case for them being certainly a most valuable player. You know, in some baseball parlance, and an off-speed pitch, and Weiss is the second strikeout by Tampany. It is the most valuable player. You refer to baseball players as pitchers and players.
Right.
How many players are you carrying? How many pitchers are you carrying?
I've never thought about it that way, but you're right. I mean, you're exactly right. Yeah.
How valuable is this guy?
Yeah, he's very valuable.
And the other controversy we have is the Rookie of the Year.
Right.
Will he qualify? Should Nomo be eligible?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt he should be eligible, but the question is, again, he pitches once every 5th day. Players like Chipper Jones plays every day, and who's more valuable to their ball club? But that's a very difficult call there, because Nomo has had a great year, and he's done just about everything to keep the Dodgers afloat. So, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that he deserves consideration for Rookie of the Year.
Ritz takes the 2-strike pitch to third, and Wallach throws him out. That's 6 in a row retired by Tampany since giving up the home run to Dante Bichette. 2 up, 2 down here in the 5th inning.
And I want to make sure no one takes what I said wrong here. I don't diminish anything that Greg Maddux has done, because I think he is just head and shoulders above any other pitcher in baseball. But by the same token, you know, an everyday player is an everyday player, and you put it very well there. I think that's the easiest way to look at it.
Here's the top of the Rocky batting order, Eric Young, and he lines one headed toward the left field corner. Young, with good speed, is on his way to second, and he'll make it easily with his 20th double of the year. The Rockies pick up their 5th hit, a line double up the left side.
I think the Rockies have a lot of people who should get votes for postseason awards. I think Don Baylor really should be the manager of the year. Here's a breaking ball that's lined down the left field line. I think Baylor should get a lot of votes for manager of the year simply because he has managed a pitching staff that has not been very good, overall.
If there's ever a challenge to handling a pitching staff, anybody who manages in Denver.
Right. And he has accepted that and done a very good job with it. And of course, Bobby Cox, a lot of managers have done good jobs. But I really think that, you look at what Baylor has done with this ball club, and I think you have to say that he deserves to be, manager of the year.
Joe Girardi, nothing of two, did reach on a fielder's choice and came home on the Bichette home run.
And I'll add a comment to that: if they win the division, that's the comment I will make. If they win the division, I think he deserves to wear the mantle of manager of the year in the National League.
He's an interesting blend as a manager. And when you talk with him about the people who have influenced him, Joe Altobelli's name comes up, Earl Weaver's name, Gene Mauch. Nothing in two. And you can see how he's taken from all the various managers he's been exposed to.
Right.
Weaver with the home run.
Yeah.
And he certainly has the club for that. But he can also be much more aggressive on the bases and so forth. So you see other elements of other managers that he's incorporated into his own style.
Well, it tells you he's learned a lot and he was smart enough to listen.
Yeah. Outside, 1 ball and 2 strikes. He said that's one of the advantages, and maybe one of the few advantages of having the designated hitter in baseball, Joe. Baylor was for a long time. He said, I spent a lot of time on the bench as a DH. And he says, I did listen and observe.
Yeah. It's a good point.
So maybe there is reason to have
a DH. Okay. You just gave a good reason. Okay.
1-2, big chop. Tough play. Fonville, wide throw. And the Rockies will have men at first and third.
Nice play there by Carroll to find and track that ball down to keep it from going into the dugout.
First and third with 2 gone. Dante Bichette. Bichette hitting number 40 in the 3rd inning. And a lot has been said about Bichette's numbers and how they break out at home, how they break out on the road. And it took him a while before he hit a home run on the road this year. But if you backtrack that over the last couple of years, which then would equal the full season, he's driven in 100 and, well, now 109 runs. He's hit 27 home runs and 47 doubles over the last 2 years in a period that would equal 162 games, let's say, on the road.
Well, again, I think you can't just say this guy hits in Denver. I mean, he's hit every place.
First and third, 2 gone. And he takes a strike.
You can see the difference in Tapani's approach to Bichette this at bat as compared to last at bat. He was way out over the plate. Now he comes inside. Bichette actually likes the ball out over the plate. So he's going to try to stay in tight and then go way away. You see him going way away now. And that's what he will try to do. He will try to go in and out and keep him off balance. But he will not let Bichette lean out over the plate and drive the ball to right center field on a pitch that's out over the plate again.
Runners, third base Young, first base Girardi. 1-1 the count.
Back inside.
He carries the count to a ball and 2 strikes on Dante Bichette.
And that's good pitching. That's smart pitching and smart pitch calling by Piazza, because again, he hit the ball out over the plate to right center field. You start him off inside, then you go away, and then you come back inside where you want to get him out. And then you go away with a breaking ball.
And a tap toward third. Wallach gets rid of it. Bichette is out, and so are the Rockies in the fifth. They do not score, leaving 2 men aboard. Bottom of the fifth coming, 4-3 Los Angeles.
If Greg Maddux is doing it on the mound this year, then the guy at the plate is Albert Bell. This is 49th home run of the year. He had 2 tonight. He's the 10th time in history a player has had 100 or more extra base hits, and just the 8th player to do so. Dewayne and Joe.
So Bell not only leads the American League in home runs. Hey, there's an extra base hit up the left field line for Karros. He's on his way for second and is in there with a stand-up double. Bottom of the fifth is underway as Eric Karros picks up a double. That's his 29th of the year. So in 4 of the 5 innings, the Dodgers have put the leadoff man on base.
And each time they have scored at least 1 run in those innings. And you're back on the tightrope again. It's a breaking ball, not such a bad pitch. You just hit it in a good spot right down the line. And it goes in for double. Bichette over to pick it up, but Karros in with a leadoff double.
And Delino DeShields, who doubled his last time up. DeShields hitting .251. And the pitch is wide, ball 1. I was about to say that Albert Bell now will give Mo Vaughn a good run for the money in that American League RBI chase as well.
Yeah. Well, Mo Vaughn hit his 39th tonight also. I don't know how many runs he drove in.
2 balls, no strikes, the count. It's Bailey throwing in the Rockies bullpen. Roger Bailey. 2-0 the count. And Ritz is behind DeShields. 3-0. It's been a struggle for Ritz. He's coming off 2 impressive outings on the road trip in San Diego and San Francisco. Down 4-3 in the bottom of the 5th tonight. There's a strike. 3-1 the count. Tommy Lasorda. Ground ball right side.
Well, DeShields gets the job done.
As Karros goes to third. You're right. Karros at third with 1 out for Tim Wallach.
And now I think you have to play the infield in. You're in the 5th inning. And you're down by 1.
Wallach was up there with the infield drawn in and meant at second and third in the 3rd when he hit that ball that Walt Weiss made a heck of a play on, diving to his left to prevent any runs from being scored. And Wallach takes a big rip and comes up empty, strike 1.
Well, he started Wallach off with that pitch each time, and Wallach has swung and missed it. Wallach likes the ball down, so if you get a chance, you throw the fastball up above the belt, and you can get him out. Not down there.
And a high fly ball into center. Burks makes the catch. The tag by Karros. He's coming to the plate, and the throw is not in time. Karros scores on the fly ball to center by Wallach. And the Dodgers lead by 2. It's 5-3.
And that is a very big run. Well, you see Karros, he gets a good start, runs right down the line. That is perfect base running there. You see a lot of guys take off, run outside the line, which makes you run farther. Excellent throw here by Burke. Just a little late. You should always run straight down the chalk line. That's the shortest point, of course, between third base and home.
So every time the Dodgers have put the leadoff man on tonight, they've converted. First pitch to Mondesi misses. Ball 1.
And you see Wallach patting the shields on the leg. He's saying, good job of moving it over for me.
Broken back, ground ball back to the mound. Flip to Galarraga. Dodgers out in the 5th, but they pick up another run through 5. 5-3 Los Angeles. Larry Walker leading off the 6th, taking the first pitch down from Tapani. A ball, no strikes. Walker followed by Galarraga and Burks. It's 5-3 Los Angeles leading Colorado. A little tap off the end of the bat, and Tapani throws him out. Tapani to Karros to get Walker, and that gives him 1 for 3 tonight.
First baseman, number 14.
Coming up Sunday, ESPN is the best place to be for the best of the NFL at 11:45 Eastern sharp, 8:45 Pacific, NFL Game Day. Get ready for all of the day's games with Berman, Jackson, Theismann, and Sharp, and then at 7 Eastern NFL primetime with the best of the day's action. There's Galarraga. Andres takes a strike. A couple of ground balls tonight, including a double play ground ball, his first time up. 0-2.
And that run seems to have inspired Tapani. He seems to be throwing a little better this inning. And maybe he was told in the dugout, hey, give me what you have left, and I'll go to the bullpen.
Two quotes, a ball and 2 strikes. Tapani, 3-2 with the Dodgers since coming over at the end of July from Minnesota. He was 6-11 with the Twins. His earned run average with the Dodgers, however, has been over 5.12. And there's a base hit through the hole. Galarraga slipping one in between Fonville and Wallach. A 1-out single. The Dodgers were hopeful that the veteran right-hander Tapani could give them a little added depth in their starting rotation. And there's the breakdown on him with the Twins and the Dodgers.
His earned run average is high at both places.
He covered 20 starts in Minnesota, and he's made 10. This is his 11th start for the Dodgers now. And except for the mistake he made to Bichette when Dante Bichette hit the 3-run home run, here's Burke sending one high and deep to right. Mondesi all the way back to the track, and he makes the catch for the out. So Ellis Burks sent it high and deep to right, but Mondesi was there for the second out. Galarraga back at first, where he remains for Vinny Castilla.
And of course, the Rockies, each time they send the big bats up there in the middle of the lineup, they're all capable of tying the run score with one swing of the bat.
Castilla's hit 32 home runs, 0 for 2 tonight. A 2-run ball game. Ball 1. Antonio Osuna.
Yes, and that's why I said I think they may have said to Tapani, just give me what you have left. Go out there and bury him this inning, and maybe I'll go to the bullpen.
One hopper to short. Fonville up with this one. What a play by Fonville to short to get the force on Galarraga at second and retire the side. We're headed into the bottom of the 6th with the Dodgers leading the Rockies 5-3. Dodgers leading 5-3, and there's that guy again, Chad Fonville.
He does always seem to be involved. This is a very fine play because this ball gets through him and may find the gap. He picks it up, comes up with it, and that's one of the reasons that he has played in place of Offerman, who was leading the league in errors. Fonville has played very good defensively, and his teammates appreciate that.
Roberto Kelly hitting 8th in the Dodger lineup, takes the first pitch too high, ball 1.
And I'll say this again, I still believe Offerman is going to be a good player in the major leagues. I really believe that.
There's a strike. You wonder if his future would be maybe in the outfield, center field as opposed to shortstop. What do you think? Down to third. Castilla, long throw in time.
there may be another alternative, and that is for him to play on AstroTurf for a while to get his confidence back, a team that has AstroTurf. And that's not to say that the Dodgers are going to or want to trade him, but if they do, if he was to go to a place where they had AstroTurf, just to get his confidence back, I think that he can still be a very good shortstop.
Well, that's going to be it for Kevin Tampany. He did give the Dodgers everything he had in the 6th. Goes 6 and now is lifted for Todd Hollingsworth on the bat for him.
You know, it's funny when I watched him walk out there. In the first 2 pitches he threw that inning, he had a little more on him than he had the entire ball game, and that's why I felt like that they had said to him, "Give me all you got, and we'll take it from here." So a good job by Tampany. He gave him all he had there in the 6th inning, and now it's up to the bullpen.
6 innings, 3 runs, all coming on the Dante Bichette home run. Hollingsworth with a little roller, and that ball finally goes foul and is picked up by Joe Girardi. Well, for a moment it appeared that it might stay fair, but Girardi stayed with it right down the line.
Quietly, we have another good job by Bruce Fleming behind the plate. I mean, quietly, I say the only argument, even close to an argument, was the 3rd call strike to Carroll in the 1st inning. But other than that, it has been a argument-free ball game.
Isn't that refreshing?
Yes, it is. Very much so. But the game should be the most important thing down the stretch. That's what's important right now. Let the players decide it on the field.
Hollingsworth, just a little piece of that one to stay alive. Hollingsworth had a fractured right thumb, so that sidelined him for a while. Pinch hitting for the pitcher, Tampany. Another foul ball with just a bit to stay alive. Hollingsworth gave the Dodgers a little fire for a time before he was injured in his outfield play. Impressed some people with his overall approach to the game. He's out on strikes here. 2 up, 2 down in the 6th inning.
Well, it just seems like if Rich could ever gotten the first hitter out in each of the first 3 innings, he would have pitched a shutout. I mean, the innings that he has been able to retire the leadoff hitter, he's pitched very well. But other than that, he's been under pressure from the first hitter in each inning, and that's tough to pitch under that kind of a strain.
And, Joe, we mentioned the last 2 starts and the 2 relief appearances before that. In that stretch, he had retired 19 of the last 22 leadoff hitters he had faced in an inning coming into this game. Well, what a difference it makes. It's the same thing as that first pitch strike.
Yes, exactly.
When you set up a hitter. 1 strike to Butler. 1-1 now. Bases empty, 2 outs. Dodgers jumped to a 1-0 lead, made it 3-0. Bichette homered in the 3rd to tie it. Dodgers came right back with a run in their half, added a run in the 5th, and now lead 5-3. Tampany, 6 innings for the Dodgers tonight. He departs leading by 2. 2 balls and a strike to Butler, and a base hit again into right center. Walker with a pickup. Butler makes the turn, but will hold it first. Walker with that great arm out there holds Butler to a single.
You're right, Larry Walker, excellent outfielder. He's won Gold Glove before, and I mean, he knows how to charge the ball, and he gets rid of it quickly, and he has a strong arm. Fastball right down the middle. Butler lines it to right field. Good 1-step and throw by Larry Walker. Doesn't take him long to get rid of the ball. Charges it.
Now Chad Fonville. Fly ball into left. Dante Bichette is there, and the 6th inning is over. We're headed into the 7th with the score 5-3 LA. We're going into the top of the 7th at Dodger Stadium, 5-3. The Dodgers leading the Rockies with Joe Morgan, Dewayne Staats. Well, the Dodgers felt a sense of urgency in this game. And, Joe, they got a great effort from their starting pitcher, Kevin Tapani, tonight.
Well, you're right. He made one mistake to Dante Bichette, which tied the ball game at 3, but he's pitched very, very well. And the Dodgers have played very well. I think the Dodgers have shown what they're made of by coming out. They've made things happen. They've manufactured some runs, even though they didn't take advantage of some early opportunities. They have really played well in this ball game. They've kept a lot of pressure on the Rockies.
So Tapani is finished after 6 innings. And Antonio Osuna will take over for him. Osuna better than a strikeout per inning. 42 innings and 44 strikeouts. And the Rockies come in to hit against him in the 7th, down by 2 runs.
And he is a power pitcher. He throws very hard, has a hard slider. But basically his out pitch is his fastball.
Walt Weiss, the veteran shortstop, will lead off. Well, Weiss has been through these situations before. He was with some great clubs over in Oakland. 0 for 2 tonight. So he's given the Rockies a measure of leadership, veteran leadership. 1 strike to count. In a way, he said this has been more fun. He said the Rockies weren't expected to win. He said they really had to fight and claw. He said in Oakland on those clubs. He said, boy, you were expected to win. 1-1.
Tell you what, Weiss has always been a good fastball hitter from the left side. We'll see how he handles Osuna's fastball.
Osuna has the jump on Weiss. A ball and 2 strikes. That's Matt Noakes on deck. So apparently Ritz is finished for the evening. He'll be lifted with the Rockies down by a couple of runs in the 7th. And a tap down to 3rd. Wallach makes the play. So Wallach throws out Walt Weiss. And again, Wallach playing with that injured knee.
Your attention, please.
They thought it would require surgery, but he had none of that and is active once
Number
again.
11, Matt Noakes.
Now Matt Noakes will pinch hit for Ritz. Noakes, one time with the Giants, spent some time with the Tigers, the Yankees, now the Rockies. Takes a big rip and misses strike 1. So Kevin Ritz worked 6 innings, 89 pitches, 5 runs, 3 strikeouts, 2 walks. He had trouble keeping the leadoff hitter off base. Don Baylor sending Noakes to the plate. The roller headed to short. Fonville up for this one. 2 up and 2 down in the 7th.
Second baseman, number 21.
Coming into play tonight, the Rockies leading the Dodgers by a half game in the National League West. The Dodgers a full game up on Houston in the wild card race. The Rockies will head home and open a 4-game series against the Giants. And after an off day, the Dodgers will be headed into San Diego for a 3-game weekend series against the Padres. 2 outs. Don Baylor looking on. Eric Young, top of the order. And the pitch to Young is over for a strike. Bailey throwing again for the Rockies, so he'll be the new pitcher apparently. Ritz working the first 6. It's outside. The count is 1-1.
And it looks like Osuna's doing you a favor when he throws you something other than 95-mile-an-hour fastball. That slider doesn't look like it breaks that much. I mean, that sharply, it breaks a lot, but it's not real sharp. With that one breaks a lot. It gets there in a hurry.
The count is 1 ball, 2 strikes. Dodgers regained the lead in the 3rd and added to it with a run in the 5th. Up by 2 as we play in the 7th. Rockies, bases empty, 2 gone. Fastball upstairs, and the count is 2-2. Final game of the year between these two clubs. The Rockies have won 4 of the 12 games played. Full count. The Dodgers pretty much dominated this club in Denver. They're 3-3 here. The Tommy Lasorda's club won the series at Coors Field. There's the head-to-head competition. Look at the runs per game. Almost dead even. Osuna will have to make another 3-2 pitch. Rockies started the night leading the National League in home runs. They've now hit 193. The Indians have at least 196. Dante Bichette taking care of his shoelace there behind Larry Bernard. Into left center. Kelly on the run, can't get there, falling in between Kelly and Butler for a base hit. So Eric Young is aboard with a 2-out single.
That was a good job of hitting there by Young. He fought off a lot of tough pitches, worked his way to 3-2, and then he gets on base. That's what a leadoff hitter is supposed to do. It doesn't matter how you do it, just get on base. It's a fastball in, he jams him a little bit, but he still puts it in play. And that's the job of a leadoff man. Get on base so the tying run can come to the plate.
And Joe Girardi, the Rockies catcher, steps in. Over to first. Young is back in there. Five, 5-3 Los Angeles. Ball 1. There's 35 steals, 4th in the league.
I don't think this is a time to send him.
Nope. Down by a couple with the tying run at the plate. It's fouled out of play. We've seen Don Baylor be aggressive and sometimes unorthodox, but not quite that unorthodox.
No, I think in this situation you have to give Girardi a chance to hit and hope that he can either maybe even find a gap but get a base hit. And then you got Dante Bichette up again with the go-ahead run being at the plate, so you do not want to waste that opportunity by getting Young thrown out trying to steal a base in this situation.
2 balls and a strike. There are times to run, and Baylor has taken advantage of those. When you look at their stolen base total, 124, but when you start to approach the middle of this lineup with Bichette and Walker and Galarraga, followed by Burks tonight and then Castilla, that's a pretty good lumber in the middle of the order.
Now you definitely want them to get their swings, and it's even better when the pitcher is coming from the stretch.
And Girardi works the count to 3-1.
And you can see a little difference here with Osuna. You know, as soon as he gets the guy on base and the tying runs at the plate, he stopped really throwing the ball. He's thrown a sinker rather than turning his 95-mile-an-hour fastball loose as he was doing earlier this inning.
And the pitch is in there for a strike. 3-2. Look at that around his neck. That looks like the grill from a 1955 Nash Rambler he has around his neck. He's got to be off balance when he makes his delivery. 3-2, and he walks Girardi.
And you can't ask for a better situation, although you can't always expect Bichette to be the one to do it all the time. But you do get another opportunity with the league's leading home run hitter coming to the plate.
And that's Dave Wallace on his way to the mound for the Dodgers. He's their pitching coach. 2 men on with 2 men out, and Dante Bichette, who unloaded a 3-run home run in the third. Guthrie's the left-hander. Well, both of them are left-handers. Eischen on the right side of the screen is Guthrie, and then Joey Eischen on the left side there. So 2 lefties in the Dodger bullpen. Bichette the hitter, and Walker due following him.
And we'll see how they try to attack Bichette, see if they'll go inside again and try to tie him up inside, or whether they will try to stay away from him.
Well, Bichette has accounted for the Rocky offense tonight when he connected on the 1-0 pitch in the third against Kevin Taffany. Now he faces Antonio Osuna. Back in the 5th inning, Bichette left 2 men on base when he grounded to third, up with 2 men on again in the 7th. And a fly ball hit into left center. Kelly is coming in to make the play, and that retires the side. Rockies do not score. They pick up a hit and leave 2. Bottom of the 7th coming. Dodgers 5, Rockies 3. New pitcher for the Rockies as the game moves into the bottom of the 7th. 5-3, Dodgers leading. Roger Bailey takes over for Kevin Ritz. Bailey's 38th appearance, 7-6.
And there you see the numbers for Bailey. Looks a little wild. I've seen him pitch a couple of times. He really has good stuff. Just a matter of throwing strikes.
Your attention, please. Now pitching for the Rockies.
He'll be facing Mike Piazza to lead it off in the bottom of the inning. As a reminder, you can start your Saturday at 11:30 Eastern with College Game Day. This week, Chris Lee and Greg are live from Norman, Oklahoma. 5:45, Wisconsin invades Happy Valley to take on Penn State, now number 6. And then at 8:45 Eastern, back to Norman, a Big 8 showdown between Colorado and Oklahoma. Colorado 4th in the nation, the Sooners 10th. College football on ESPN Saturday. A 2-run ball game, Dodgers leading, and they send the middle of their order. Piazza, Karros, and DeShields to the plate in the 7th inning.
Well, this is a situation where the Dodgers can bust it open if these big hitters get on base or start something. So it's very important for Bailey to hold him right here, to give his team a chance in the 8th and the 9th.
And the first pitch is a strike to Piazza. Piazza 1 for 3 tonight, a first inning single. He's hitting .350, second in the league to Tony Gwynn. One ball and 1 strike. Bailey opened the year on the big league roster. Spent all of last year at the AA level, and then found himself in July optioned back to AAA. He started and relieved. 2 balls and a strike to count to Piazza.
And you can see the strategy that they have with Piazza. They've used it all evening. That's try to stay in tight on him, keep him from extending his arms.
A drive into right. Walker has room and makes the catch for the out.
Well, that ball got in on him just enough. Jammed him enough to keep it in the ballpark. The fastball up and is tailing in. See how it's running in, and it gets in just enough on Piazza that he can't drive it over the right field wall. Not exactly the pitch that they wanted to throw, but they got away with it. You can see Girardi was set up to go away, but that ball was up and in.
There's Eric Karros, the Dodgers' first baseman. Bailey throws him a strike. Karros with 2 runs scored tonight. 1-1. He opened the 3rd inning with a walk and scored, and then led off with a double in the 5th when he scored. 4 of the 5 runs given up by Kevin Ritz were the result of the leadoff man reaching, and then the Dodgers cashing in on that opportunity. But it's not over yet. Not with these 2 clubs. Sweeps low and away. 2 balls, 2 strikes. The Dodgers haven't been in the postseason, Joe, since 1988, and that year they clinched it against San Diego. They're hoping they can repeat that this year when they go to San Diego. They really need a victory tonight if they're to continue to entertain those hopes. There's a drive deep to right center, and that ball is gone. Eric Karros hits his 32nd home run of the year, and the Dodgers lead 6-3. Eric Karros is having just a great year for the Dodgers. And when his teammates talk about him, even Piazza says Karros is the MVP on this club.
Well, it's a fastball right around the middle of the plate, and that's the way he hits it, right over the right field wall. Piazza has been more spectacular. I mean, he's hit 350, hit a lot of home runs. But Karros has been there from opening day right on up to today. You have to remember Piazza lost a lot of time due to injuries, but Karros has been their guy day in and day out, and he leads the club in RBIs. And he has done just a fantastic job for the Dodgers. And, you know, even though I said a lot of people are going to vote for Piazza maybe for the MVP, Karros has been just as valuable and maybe more valuable to this Dodger ball club. Only because he was able to play day in and day out, and Piazza lost a lot of time to injury.
Well, he has produced. 2-2 the count on DeShields. 105 runs batted in for Karros to go with his 32 home runs. Ground ball over the mound. Young back to first, but not in time. DeShields picks up his 2nd hit tonight.
Last night in the ball game, Brett Saberhagen started for the Rockies. He went 5, and Don Baylor used 5 relievers to secure that victory. And he made all the right choices in last night's ball game. And he probably had his choices limited because of that today. But Bailey has come in now and given up 1 run, and this is a very, very important run he's given up.
You saw Young grimace as he walked back to his second base position. He's had a hamstring problem and is not 100%. That's another reason that they're reluctant to run him. Throw to first. Ball gets away, but not far enough to give DeShields a chance. He's about 80% on that hamstring and may have aggravated it on that play.
Well, you can see that he is in some discomfort out there. I mean, he is. It looks like it's his right leg that's bothering him the most at this point.
No count on Tim Wallach. DeShields bluffed to start, stopped, and the pitch is a ball to Wallach.
And you can see Girardi trying to calm Bailey down, so not too hard, just let it go. He feels like he may be trying to overthrow after Karros hit the fastball out. He's trying to get a little bit more velocity on his fastball.
Over to first, and he throws it away. DeShields is on his way to second, and he'll make it. Bailey on the pickoff attempt makes a poor throw, and DeShields is now in scoring position.
Well, the great thing about all this is we've shown you shots of Baylor. Now watch. This is just a lob. I don't know exactly what he was trying to do. That's no way he's going to pick anyone off with that throw. And the fact that he didn't throw it caused him to bounce it. My point I wanted to make is that I'm watching Don Baylor very closely, and his demeanor is very good for this ball club.
There goes DeShields stealing third. Pitches the ball, and the throw is not in time. DeShields steals third after the move up on the error. So the Dodgers on the home run by Karros, and now DeShields with a base hit to move to second on the error and the steal of third. This crowd of better than 53,000 on its feet.
Good pitch to throw on. If he could have gotten the throw down and on the shortstop side of the bag, Castillo would have been able to make the tag quicker. The throw was on the outside of the bag, and he had to bring it all the way across, and he was not able to get it there in time.
Infield forced to come in. Swing and a miss, 2-1.
Truthfully, other than the home run by Karros, this has been a kind of a vanilla type game for the Dodgers in that nothing spectacular, just getting the job done. Manufacturing runs, moving runners along when they get on base, and scoring them.
Wallach sends it deep to center. Burks is there to make the catch. The tag by DeShields, and he will score the second run of the inning. Wallach delivers his second sacrifice fly to center. And the Dodgers now lead 7-3.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Just a vanilla kind of game. A single by DeShields, an error, a stolen base, and a fly ball. They scored a run with only one hit in the second inning. No. In the third inning, they scored with just one base hit.
Here's Raul Mondesi. And he pops it up, foul ball. Castilla is after it, and he makes the catch to take care of Mondesi and the Dodgers. But the Dodgers had two in the seventh, one coming on the home run by Eric Karros. Drew 7-3 Los Angeles. Coming into this game, the Dodgers felt it was a must-win for them, and through 7, they're out in front 7-3. We're headed into the 8th inning. Starting play, Colorado up by a half game. The Dodgers going into San Diego. The Rockies going home to play the Giants for 4 in Houston. Tonight pulling for the Rockies to beat the Dodgers. Houston on its way to Chicago for 4. They're still alive in the wild card race, the Astros. Here's Larry Walker to lead off the 8th. And a swing and a miss at a pitch from Antonio Osuna.
And as I said at the beginning of the ball game, this game is more important for the Dodgers to win than it is for the Rockies. Obviously, the Rockies would like to win this ball game and put themselves up by a game and a half, which is really 2 in the loss column. But the fact still remains, if the Dodgers win this ball game and the Rockies win tomorrow, they're tied again. So more importantly, it was more important for the Dodgers than it is for the Rockies.
1 ball and 2 strikes. Saw Tommy Lasorda there a moment ago. 4 World Series appearances and 6 league championship appearances for Tommy Lasorda in his 19-year span here managing the Dodgers, but nothing since 1988. Right back into center field, deep. Butler back, and it's going to be over his head, bounding against the fence. Walker hitting second on his way to third, and Larry Walker's in with a stand-up triple, his 5th triple of the year. A 1-2 pitch. Walker gets lots of carry on the balls that he hits, and that one he hit a ton over Butler's head.
Number 14, Andres Galarraga.
Well, when you hit that 95-mile-an-hour fastball and you hit it well, it will travel. And this is more of a line drive than a fly ball. Butler gave it a good try, but the ball bounced away. And good hustle here by Walker. As you see, Butler barely misses it by about 6 or 8 inches. A good hustle by Walker to get around to third base.
There's Andres Galarraga. He swings through this one, strike one. Galarraga singled in the 6th. He's 1 for 3 and still trying to find himself at the plate.
You're right.
First time he's topped the 100 mark and runs batted in. Oh! Galarraga hit in the helmet and down he goes. Galarraga on an 0-1 pitch. Dave Salati, the Colorado trainer, is out to check Galarraga immediately. Osuna throws hard, and it got Galarraga. It appeared at first on the very back of the helmet. And we hope that Galarraga has nothing more than a bad headache right now.
Well, he seems to be conscious, which is a good sign. Well, he's smiling. Now watch Galarraga. He dives into the ball. See how his head starts in? And it looks like it gets him on the helmet, which is obviously very good. And for him, anyway.
There's a natural sound. And they had Osuna at 94 on the Jugs gun. And Galarraga is hit on the helmet by that pitch. It's always scary, but a very good sign to see Andres Galarraga up and walking off with the help of Dave Salati.
We talked about it earlier in the ball game. Galarraga has a lot of movement before he swings, and he starts with an open stance and he closes it and he kind of dives in towards the plate, and you could see the first movement his head made was to go towards home plate. Now watch his head dive in. Now watch his head as it dives in towards the pitch. It doesn't go away. See right there how it comes in, and then he gets caught behind the head. Thank goodness he was able to turn his head and not get hit in the face.
Your attention, please.
So Galarraga
The Rockies.
is out of there, and Quentin McCracken will come on to run for him. And McCracken enters the game as a pinch runner. The Rockies have men at first and third. Osuna received a quick visit from his pitching coach, Dave Wallace. Nobody out here in the 8th. And who knows? Given the explosive nature of this Colorado offense, anything could happen. Ellis Burks 1 for 3 tonight.
And let's see what effect this has on Osuna. I mean, it's going to have an effect on the pitcher too, because I mean, he hits the guy in the head, and it's a scary moment not only for the batter but for the pitcher as well.
Yep.
And we'll see how he handles it.
I'm sure that was a big part of what was on the mind of Dave Wallace when he went to the mound. And Burks fouls it out of play, and the count is 1-1. Osuna in relief of Tapani. Two balls and a strike. It was the 12th time Galarraga has been hit by a pitch this year.
Only Larry Walker, I guess, on his own ball club has had more.
Yep. Walker's been hit 13 times. Walker's at third. McCracken's aboard at first. This one into center. Butler's there to make the catch. Walker tags and scores. So the Rockies pick up their 4th run. Burke's getting credit for his 46th run batted in this year. McCracken still at first.
Third baseman, number 9.
53,856 tonight at Dodger Stadium. The Dodgers have a 7-4 lead as we play in the top of the 8th. And here's Vince Castilla. Castilla takes it, and it gets away behind Piazza. McCracken goes all the way to second and makes the turn. He'll hold there. That's going to be a pass ball charged to Piazza.
Well, it looked like a breaking ball. It was down. I don't know what happened to it. It looked like it went right between his legs. Well, it scooted between his legs. We'll take a look. And you see right, he did not get the glove down in time, and it went right between his legs. It was a pass ball because the ball did get there in the air. There has been any criticism of Piazza, it has been for his defense, but I mean, I think he's done a great job behind the plate as well as hitting. I mean, he has to deal with a lot of different personalities on his pitching staff. And some of them do not speak good English. I mean, you've got Nomo, you have Valdez, you got Martinez, you have people with a lot of different personalities, and he has to deal with all of those pitchers.
That's tough enough just being a young catcher.
Being a young catcher dealing with Major League pitching, and he has to do it with, you know, people with, you know, speak different languages. So I don't think anybody should offer any criticism of Mike Piazza's defense.
1-1 the count. This one's fouled out of play. Castilla behind in the count. He has driven the ball the other way a lot this year to right center. Likes the fastball, and sometimes I think he gets a little over anxious at the breaking stuff. I would only assume that that's to transport Andres Galarraga. Maybe they'll take him for precautionary x-rays. Osuna ahead of Castilla. There's a foul ball. We mentioned, Art, how a few innings ago spending some extra time with Galarraga and extra BP before the game, and Castilla gives Howe a lot of credit for the way he has blossomed this year. Howe has stayed with him and worked on Castilla hitting the ball the other way. And Howe, a fan of Castilla, says you don't realize just how strong he is. By the way, there's a personal note. Art Howe, the Rockies hitting instructor, happy to be back with the club. Swing and a miss. Castilla chased the breaking ball for the second out. Howe was absent from the Rockies for about a 2-week period. A little over a month ago, back in August, his oldest daughter was involved in a serious auto accident. She was in a coma, and he spent almost day and night time at the hospital with her, and we're happy to say that she's out of the hospital now. She's a second-year law student and is going through rehab, and they project a complete recovery.
Right.
So that's good news for his daughter Stephanie and the Howe family. We're only too happy to report that. Walt Weiss lifts a fly ball into left. Roberto Kelly's there, makes the catch to retire the side. Rockies pick up a run. We go into the bottom of the 8th. It's 7-4 Los Angeles. The Dodgers are leading the Rockies. Bottom of the 8th coming. And a new pitcher for the Rockies. Their third pitcher of the night is right-hander Joe Gray. 4-3 on for the 17th time.
Well, the Rockies have used a lot of pitchers, and we talked about how difficult it has been for Don Baylor because of his starting pitching not being as healthy and as capable as he'd like. But their bullpen has done a great job throughout the entire year.
Defensive changes on the right side for the Rockies. It's John Vanderwall at first base taking over for Galarraga, and Jason Bates has entered the game at second base taking over for
Leading
Young.
off Dodgers number 21, left fielder
Roberto Kelly opens the bottom of the 8th. First pitch is foul, strike 1. Now the Rockies have 1 shot left, with the Dodgers leading by 3 at the moment, 7-4. Too close, 1-1. So the Dodgers are trying to hold on and go into first place. They would move up by a half game.
Let me give you some food for thought here. There's been a lot of criticism about the wild card situation. Let's take a look at the National League. There was no wild card situation. In the past, you have the East and the West. Well, if that was the case this year, the Atlanta Braves, who most people say are the best team in the National League, the Cincinnati Reds second, and either the Dodgers or the Rockies or the Houston Astros would be 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Well, if this was the old alignment, none of those teams would be in the playoffs. It would be the Atlanta Braves playing the Philadelphia Phillies, and that would be the #1 team in the league facing maybe the 6th or 7th best team in the league. So there is something.
Tell you what I'll do, Joe.
Okay.
I'll trade you the wild card for the DH. Okay? We'll gladly embrace the wild card, and we can forget about the DH and play baseball in the American League the way the game's supposed to be played. We'll go with the wild card and call it even.
Well, I just wanted to make that point because, I mean, the 5 or 6 best teams in the league are in the National League West.
Kelly rams the 2-2 pitch into left center field all the way to the wall. Extra bases for Roberto Kelly, who will stop at second with his second double of the night and his 22nd 2-base hit of the year. Well, I think your point has to be taken seriously.
Yeah, but I mean, you can do the same thing in the American League.
Yep.
I mean, the 2 best teams are probably in the same division, meaning Cleveland and Boston, and that would mean Boston would not be in the playoffs. So this year you still have a chance, as we look at Chris Gwynn, the pinch hitter, you still have a chance of having the best teams from each league playing in the league championship series.
Chris Gwynn will pinch hit for Osuna. And while Chris's brother Tony started the day at .365 on his way to another batting title, Chris Gwynn still has the championship ring.
Yes.
That came in '88 with the Dodgers. Time called, and Don Baylor's on his way to the mound. Leadoff double here by Kelly off Gray. And Baylor is going to go to the bullpen with Gwynn in his left-handed bat being announced.
And they're also going to have a pinch runner.
So we'll sort all of this out with the score 7-4 in the Dodger half of the 8th. Back in a moment. Bottom of the 8th inning, 7-4. Dodgers leading the Rockies. And the Rockies go for the left-hander Lance Painter, 2-0 with a save in 30 appearances and a .440 earned run average. The wheels are turning everywhere as we look at the rest of Painter's numbers. Roger Cedeno has taken over at second base as the runner for Kelly. Kelly double now lifted for Cedeno. Chris Gwynn had been announced as the pinch hitter, but now he's going to be lifted, and Gary Ingram will bat for him. Ingram hitting .216 for the year. So it's Painter on the mound. Gray faced just one man and gave up the double.
And the Rockies are looking for a bunt here from Ingram.
There's the bunt. They have a play at third, and Cedeno is out there. So Cedeno cut down at third.
Excellent play there, defensive play by the Rockies. You very rarely see this play unless there are runners at first and second where it's a force out at third. But Castillo charges, and Weiss runs over to third. Now watch Castilla. There goes Weiss in the background. Here comes Castilla. The bunt is laid down properly. You're supposed to make the third baseman field it. Good playing here. Just a very fine defensive play by the Rockies. Again, you do not see that play normally unless there are runners at first and second, and it's a force-out situation. Good play by Castilla, good play by Weiss, and very good play set up by the coaching staff of the Rockies.
One gone with Ingram now at first and Butler at the plate. One ball short. Weiss goes to second, one, and no throw to first base. Jason Bates could not get it off.
Well, he was under a lot of pressure there. Ingram got down to second base very quickly.
Shortstop, number 3.
2 outs.
Chad Lockville.
Butler reaching on what turns out to be a fielder's choice.
Well, you see the play is made properly by Weiss. He gets it to second very quickly. Bates really kind of stays at the bag so the runner knows where to find him right there. See, the runner knows where he is. He probably should have come across the bag. He may have been able to get the throw off. I still don't think he would have doubled Butler up on a ground ball like that. With the fast runners, you have to have 2 short throws to make the double play. Can't have 2 long throws.
Here's Fonville. There goes Butler. And the ball pops away from Girardi. So Butler's in. He had swiped the base back in the second inning and will get credit for his 31st stolen base of the year. This one comes in the 8th.
He just outsmarted everyone there. He got on first, did not take a big lead, and just took off. He was, if the throw would have gone to first base, he would have been picked off because he was just taking off on the first movement.
Fonville looks at a strike. It's 1-1. (7-4) Dodgers leading. Ground ball right side for Bates. And that takes care of the Dodgers. They do not score. We have completed 8 tonight at Dodger Stadium. With the score, Los Angeles 7, Colorado 4. The Dodgers hold a 3-run lead as we open the 9th inning at Dodger Stadium tonight. 7-4 Los Angeles. And Todd Worrell becomes the 3rd pitcher of the night with 31 saves, a record of 4-1.
And Worrell has really done the job for the Dodgers so far this year. I mean, he is overpowering. He's throwing very well. He's had a couple of years where he didn't throw well. And an arm injury right after he signed with the Dodgers. He signed a long-term contract with them, and he had an arm injury the next season. This is the final year of the contract, so he's having a good year.
There's Roger Cedeno, who entered as a pinch runner, and he stays on to play left field. Jason Bates hitting out of the 9th spot. Leads off the 9th inning. He'll be followed by John Vanderwall. And Bates took over for Young at second base in the bottom of the 8th. And hits here in the 9th. First pitch from Worrell is a strike. Rockies looking to get a couple base runners before they'd have a shot. Bates lifts it foul, and that's headed for the stands. Cedeno gives it a chase. 0-2. This is Tapani's game to win. And Worrell on trying to close it out. He earned his 31st save in the first game of this series Monday against the Rockies. He is 6 of his last 6 in the save opportunity department. The 0-2. And a little popper on the left side, caught by the shortstop Fonville. That's the first out here in the 9th inning. Reminder, Sports Center's coming up. Greg Kilburn and Linda Cohn. The playoff chase. Albert Bell, a couple of home runs tonight, and Price is right for the Bullets. All on Sports Center following our game. Vanderwall hitting .337. He's been the pinch hitter deluxe, establishing a new pinch hit record. Fouls this one, strike one. Vanderwall batting with one out and the bases empty in the 9th inning. He took over at first base when Galarraga was forced to leave the game after he was hit by a pitch. Hit in the helmet, but he walked off the field under his own power. Vanderwall takes the ball. Vanderwall homered on Thursday against Sergio Valdez of the Giants, and that broke the record held by Jose Morales for pinch hits in a single year. That came with Montreal in '76. Well, the Rockies started play tonight, a half game in front. If it ends like this, they'll be a half game back, Joe, and headed home.
Well, I think that's the great thing for the Rockies. I mean, they headed home, and if they win tomorrow, they're in a flat-footed tie with the Dodgers.
There's a base hit just out of the reach of Fonville.
Of course, he will not get credit for a pinch hit in this situation because he came in and played the last half inning.
Now the Rockies have one base runner. They need another one to have a shot. Here's Joe Girardi.
Well, if Girardi can get on base, then you have the big guys coming up. Bichette, Walker.
Girardi hitting in front of Bichette, who hit a 3-run homer back in the 3rd. Ground ball, shortstop. Fonville to DeShields, 1, first base, 2, and this one is over. Worrell gets the double play ball out of Girardi to end it, and the Dodgers win 7-4. And go back into first place by a half game in the National League's Western Division. Tampany will get credit for the victory. The Dodgers will have a day off and head down to San Diego to play a 3-game series. The Rockies will go home to play a 4-game series against the Giants. Dodgers up by a half game over the Rockies. They're even in the loss column.
Well, make no mistake about it, this is not over yet. The Rockies are still in it, and the Houston Astros are still in it. So you still have a 3-team race for the Western Division and the wild card. So a lot of things going to happen this weekend. Going to be a lot of fun.
Dodgers win tonight over the Rockies. Sports Center is next with a look at all the games affecting the pennant chases and big NBA trade news. For Joe Morgan and our entire ESPN crew, I'm Dewayne Staats. The final from L.A., the Dodgers 7, Rockies 4. Good night from Los Angeles.